Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today on Justice is Served, we're talking Corinne Gaines, Young Buck, an official platform for the Black Lives Matter movement, and more. Stay with us.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this, the first week of August, our latest episode of Justice is Served, where we cover the latest in legal news every single week. Thanks for joining me. My name is Chelsea Galicia. I'm an attorney and joined by fellow attorney Shaka Smith. Thank you so much for holding down the fort. Last week when I was out, I got my political itch scratched by another show on a sister network. So if you're into politics and want to hear my many opinions about it, you can join me at AfterBuzz TV Trump versus Hillary on Tuesday nights at 7. Therefore, I will leave all the talk today on legal stuff rather than itching my way to find how to bring in the politics, which is inundating our news.
Yeah, it must be a lot of heavy lifting over there, Trump versus Hillary.
Oh, yeah, that's good times.
New story every day.
Yeah, and then we have got to share the breaking news on one of your other shows.
Yeah, so exciting. We do the Greenleaf After Show here on Black Hollywood Live, the first after show on the OWN network, and Oprah just tweeted me about tonight's episode. So.
I literally saw him like lose his breath, and then I was jumping up and down. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so freaking cool.
To know that she's recognizing what we're doing over here at Black Hollywood Live and watching is amazing.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats. It must say a lot about the quality of the show that you're doing.
Hopefully, yeah. When O talks about it, you know you're in good company.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so exciting things going on over here, but of course we've got to get to the legal news, which some is exciting and some not so much.
Yeah.
The first we're going to talk about the, depending on how you look at it, tragic or not so tragic death of Corinne Gaines. This is has been framed by some people as another police brutality, overstepping and killing a innocent, black citizen of the United States.
Yeah.
And this one I see a little bit different. Mm-hmm. How do you see how this situation went down that led to her death just a couple of days ago in Baltimore?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I kind of woke up to a lot of this stuff on Twitter. I get a lot of my news that way these days. And I'm seeing the hashtag trending. I automatically got upset about what was happening. But then when I read the story about what happened, then I questioned where the movement was going. So it looks like she had some traffic violations, and there was an arrest warrant out for her arrest.
Not even just traffic. There was a little bit more involved than that, including. God, I'm not remembering off the top of my head, and I don't want to misspeak, but there were some that were slightly more serious than...
So, but violations that weren't of the nature that you would get shot over, it wasn't...
Definitely misdemeanors or infractions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And so they got an arrest warrant, and apparently the landlord gave them the officers the key to enter the
They tried to knock on the door because they heard people inside. They knew she probably was in there. She didn't answer, so the landlord gave them the key.
And it looks like, she took a series of videos, but it looks like she had a gun, that she threatened the police, she threatened to shoot them, and she refused to come out, and she had her 5-year-old child with her.
This was a whole long hours ordeal. Shut down the building. People had to be evacuated because she did not want to come out and be arrested. I guess nobody wants to be arrested. But
And apparently, once a few hours later, she makes another threat, and the officers open fire, and she fires back. And, she subsequently gets killed, and the child, unfortunately, gets injured as well.
Yeah, he got shot, but at this point, we don't know whose gun that shot came from.
I'd imagine it's the police. I'm going to assume she didn't misfire and shoot her own child. But it lent itself to a lot of questions. But initially, I'm saying, well, it looks like the police probably acted properly within the scope. They acted in a manner that I wouldn't question further. But there are some videos that she had taken during this ordeal. And it looks like some of those videos are missing, and some of her social media had been deleted, and she'd been documenting part of this ordeal on social media.
And to counter that, the police said, this was an active situation going on, and so they asked the social media outlets to not post them because it showed what the police were doing, which was potentially endangering the police. And so,
well, it would only show what the police were doing from her vantage point, so it would be offering no more information to her than what she was garnering from looking around her surroundings. So that is the only suspicious part. So, and the body cameras that they're supposed to have, apparently, they're saying, well, they had just been implemented and may not have been working correctly. So
I read that they didn't even have them at all.
Yeah. So I know the program had been implemented, but They obviously didn't have any working body cameras.
So for me, this whole thing turns on whether it's true or not that she pointed the shotgun at an officer.
Exactly.
That she did fire the weapon, as they say that she did.
Yeah.
And if so, then I guess I would understand that they would return force of that matched that level.
Exactly. And so I certainly wouldn't, in this particular situation, question their methods. However,
because it seems like they took a long time. They tried to get her own family members there to try and negotiate with her to come out, and that didn't work.
Yeah, but what I do kind of mark is, the Black Lives Matter movement has kind of embraced her as well, and they say that there are a lot of white shooters who are in similar situations, but they make it out alive. They're arrested alive. And so I think the situation should be examined from the context of, are there de-escalation tactics the police could use? However, if everything is true, I wouldn't fault the police for the tactics they did use and wouldn't question their judgment, but I would, going forward, wonder if we're able to arrest certain people in these type of situations, can we look for ways to arrest all people in these type of situations?
Yeah, I think the Black Lives Matter movement kind of gets into dangerous territory when it starts trying to defend armed people, when they're trying to defend the honor and name of unarmed victims of brutality.
Yeah.
That is much more easy to get behind. When you start... listen, she's a human being who is, deserving of some sympathy, and, she was... who wants to be arrested?
And of course, if what they say is true, I believe the mentality that she has is born out of this sort of militant want not to follow the direction of the police, because they have been operating poorly, at least in these landmark cases that we've seen across the country.
Well, supposedly, and I read something to the effect that she wouldn't even drive with a license plate. She had like a cardboard cutout that said... That was something to say that she was not going to respect the law that required her to have a license.
So given if all that is true, I 100% fault her not following the law and certainly following policies and procedures that would have helped to save her life. But I do want to look at the broader problem, I think, in this country as to why she even had that mentality as to these issues that we need to kind of cure, so that people aren't walking around not cooperating with the police.
And I think that's something that we'll get to a couple stories down when we talk about the Black Lives Matter platform.
Yeah, and I think that was certainly part of it.
All right, so to a lighter story, young buck spent the weekend in jail.
Yeah.
First, I'm like, okay, this is kind of silly. He just went in for the weekend for violating probation.
Yeah.
Apparently, the U.S. attorney thought he might flee, and then he posed a danger to others. But by Monday, he was no longer a threat or danger to others, so he's out. Did this make sense to you?
Well, it actually did, because he was put back into... So he's on jail he's on probation from the 2012 gun charge. They had raided his home. They found some illegal weapons. So he's on probation from the gun charge. But now this stems from a July 21st incident where he goes to his ex-girlfriend's place. He by text, he's threatened to torch down the place. He gets there, kicks in the door, and then leaves. And so then subsequently on the 28th, they arrest him, saying he poses a danger and may flee. So it made sense in the fact that if he's really that passionate about the ex-girlfriend, he certainly may pose a danger to her, and maybe they want to keep...
He only poses a danger on the weekends? I mean, it just was weird that it lasted like 2 days.
Well, yeah, maybe they had him in jail enough time where they felt there was a cooling period, or, after talking to him and evaluating him, they thought he was no longer a threat to her. So that makes sense in that way, but he does face a probation hearing coming up on this violation.
Yeah, this is... Yeah.
But no stranger to trouble, so hopefully he can stay out of it.
Poor guy. All right. Here's another poor guy. Not very often do I come out as a staunch supporter of an LAPD officer in an incident of alleged racism.
Yeah.
But in this case, I am. So back in, I can't believe it's already so long ago, September 2014, the Django Unchained actress Daniele Watts was not pulled over. She was, I don't know.
Well, she was stopped.
Well, she was already stopped because she was in the car having sex with her boyfriend.
She was interrupted, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good word. Yeah. Interrupted by an officer, Sergeant Jim Parker.
Yeah.
And the way things went down, according to her, he displayed racism and brutality towards her.
He had put the handcuffs on too tight. She was bleeding from the wrist.
Yeah.
And, all of this is coming during a time where the nation was very heightened over these big racial issues with police.
So this sergeant was skewered in the media.
Yeah.
The LAPD didn't do much of anything to defend him, or so he felt.
Yeah.
And so he took matters into his own hands, which it's hard for me to fault him for doing this.
Yeah.
But he leaked the audio
To TMZ.
of the encounter, and it showed that, in fact, Daniele Watts was the aggressor and that there wasn't racism and this brutality that she had accused him of.
So, yeah, but now we have the Ethics Commission coming after him and saying, well, you leaked a police tape to TMZ. What we'll let you do is plead no contest, essentially say that you're guilty and pay a $2,500 fine. If you're unwilling to do that, we're coming after you for $10,000. And he's unwilling to plead guilty and take a $2,500 fine.
I've got his back on this one.
I've got his back if he wasn't paid by TMZ for the audio. So that was never, I haven't found any disclosure about that, but if he was paid for the audio, I don't have his back. But if he was not paid for the audio and he just did it to clear his good name, then I have his back on it.
Well, how does getting paid for it change my opinion? I mean, I think he wanted to leak it to clear his name.
Yeah, but if he certainly made some financial recompense from it, then why not pay that into the fund of wrongdoing? Because it was still a wrong act.
Why doesn't the accuser pay the penalty? Because she sort of got him into this mess. I mean, we don't really have a solution to...
And certainly she's got civil, there's civil suit. He can file a civil suit against Daniele Watts. Certainly.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to go if he somehow lost this.
And he may be able to use that to pay the fine.
Yeah. But, yeah, I didn't think that was so cool at all. And, I mean, I wonder, was there a more legal way for him to go about clearing his name?
Well, certainly the police probably had a process for releasing tapes or,
I can just imagine, though,
or an investigation that would have...
the level of heat that he was taking.
Yeah, and obviously a police investigation concluding that another policeman was not racist doesn't help,
Yeah.
So he was between a rock and a hard place, but at the same time, you don't want to be breaking those department protocols as well.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I wish him luck on that. Yeah. And then I also wish a lot of luck to State Attorney Marilyn Mosby of Baltimore. She was the attorney who filed the charges against the 6 officers who were involved in the death of Freddie Gray.
Yeah.
She made the agonizing decision, she called it, to drop the charges against the remaining officers after nearly half of them had been found.
I think we had 3 acquittals and we had one hung jury.
So the writing was on the wall that this was probably not going to go anywhere well for the prosecution, and she just decided essentially to fold.
Yeah.
She said that there were a number of problems, including police mishandling of the investigation, which raises this whole question about whether the police should be investigating themselves. Other people saying that other agencies offered to help and she declined. That's a mess that I think definitely needs to be addressed on a policy level. Statewide, I wish nationwide, but that's probably not likely going to happen anytime soon. So now a total of 5 officers have come back to sue her.
Yeah.
What do you think their chances are of suing her successfully?
Well, there's governmental immunity, and you have just like police officers have a certain latitude in their job, so do state attorneys.
I think the charges are silly, a false arrest, and there is a man that died of a homicide, and you were the last people to put your hands on him. How is this so far-fetched that you might be arrested for it?
And what she may have done was poor decisions in her job, but you're not going to be held accountable, at least not legally, for poor decisions in your job in that sense. And so she didn't go after the ranking officer on the scene. And a lot of legal experts have said, had she gone after the ranking officer, and rather all the different defects that took place with the other officers would have been upon the ranking officer to take the legal blame for it. And had they gone that route, they might have seen a conviction.
But I can't believe that even the misconduct in office charges didn't stick. And that's the part that makes me think that something is really bizarre and unjust here, that there wasn't even a successful prosecution on something which would seem to me as simple.
Well, none of the prior prosecutions were for the ranking officer, so it could well be that they all said, well, we weren't the ranking officer, and so I rely on my ranking officer to tell me when a procedure is not proper. And so if they were using that defense, certainly that might sway a jury or a judge.
Yeah, some other problems of the case is that it was difficult to prove the intent of officers. And I thought that was bizarre because in some of these you didn't need to prove intent, just mere negligence. And so again, I don't understand why those negligence charges didn't hold up. And then during the investigation, they're obviously questioning police officers, and there is a code of silence that you don't speak badly about fellow officers, and so that definitely had a negative impact on the ability to find out the truth about what happened here. So I just, I believe that in what she said, when she said we've all bore witness to an inherent bias that's the result of when police themselves. A major problem here that goes well beyond her.
Yeah, and so I think that whole case was just a mess from the start, but I think hopefully it still added to the conversation that we have about cleaning up our police departments.
Yeah, and I think for her sake and for the sake of justice, I hope that the police officers do not prevail in their case against her. I just don't see how.
No, and that would have a chilling effect on state attorneys to do their job. So I don't think.
I know they want to be mad at her that she arrested them or pressed charges so quickly.
Yeah.
The investigation could have been longer. Probably in hindsight should have been longer, but I think she was fairly concerned about the public outcry.
Yeah.
And the fact that it seems simple. An unarmed man who didn't do anything except make eye contact with police officers and then run away, which is not against the law.
At the time, they said he had an illegal switchblade, which turned out to be a legal pocket knife.
And then now they're countering to say it actually was illegal because it was spring. It had a spring in it. It was, but they didn't know that at the time. So just this trying to harp on these tiniest of details to justify why this man was killed really is just obscene to me. And I believe, strongly hope that in this this joint platform that was released not just by the Black Lives Matter movement, but by 50 black organizations, will help address some of the problems that are leading to deaths like Freddie Gray.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get there, we do have a word from our sponsor.
All right.
Looking for a career in tech? Maybe. Business, data, design, or marketing? Trying to get that promotion or raise? To excel in your career, you need 21st century training and skills. General Assembly is the largest and most respected school worldwide for people seeking to grow their talents and master the marketplace. Whether it's learning remotely online or in person at one of their beautiful campuses, you can join the 350,000 people who have already gotten the training needed to propel careers in tech and business. More than 2,500 companies worldwide hire GA's graduates, with 99% of graduates who participate in GA's career services landing a new role and field within 6 months of starting their job search. Take control of your talent and career now. Find out more at ga.co/geek. That's ga.co/GEEK.
All right.
Enter the promo code GEEK to save on your first class, workshop, or event. That's ga.co/geek, code word GEEK.
Great. Thank you, General Assembly, for supporting Justice is Served and other shows here on Black Hollywood Live. So now the good news about this joint platform.
Yeah.
The good news is that there is a joint platform, that this has gone just from a hashtag or rallying cry to some concrete policy requests or moves. What do you think of this sort of turn in the way that they're using the movement?
To be honest, I was a little disappointed.
You were disappointed that they turned it into a platform?
No,
or
not
what
that they turned it into what the platform called for.
Okay.
So the platform actually had a number of very good, smart proposals.
Education reform, reparations, which is a very controversial
and that's
one.
We'll go back to.
Abolition of the death penalty, other
and
things.
then getting rid of drug offenses, some sex crimes.
Yes,
and
dear God. I just want to put in that I right now am reading a really fascinating book. It's called The Cannabis Manifesto, and it was written by Steve D'Angelo, who is the founder of Harborside Health Center. Remember when we covered that story earlier this year about how the feds dropped their case against the largest marijuana dispensary in the country? That's Steve D'Angelo's dispensary. But it goes into the whole history of the war on drugs. And I I had a sense of it, but when you read this book, you realize how it was just meant to go after blacks and Hispanics.
Oh, yeah.
And that should be the first and foremost goal of the platform, I believe, is to end the war on drugs. I mean, let's just start with getting marijuana out of the Schedule 1, right? So Schedule 1 under the Controlled Substance Act.
Yeah, there's no medical benefit, so you can't even study it on a federal level.
And we know from millennia of history before Prohibition that there are medical benefits to it. They've been studied, they've been quashed by the government. Some of them were government-sponsored studies. So it's not any great mystery to say that cannabis has medicinal benefits. Get it out of Schedule 1 immediately, then go on and legalize it state by state or, federally. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be the domino effect of so many states doing it. But I think that should be the primary push, and I didn't see that in the platform.
Yeah, and I do think that when you remove it from Schedule 1 and the federal studies can then prove its efficacy, then you're going to remove it even further down the schedules and maybe decriminalize it altogether on a federal level.
Because I think that right now that is the largest single cause of the unjust arrests, the mass incarceration, the oppression. I think that would turn things on their head if we got that. There are some other suggestions, investing in education and health reform,
and then even supporting that HR 40, which would look into how financially blacks have been disproportionately affected by slavery and by Jim Crow.
Yeah, but for people that are like, that happened so long ago, that means they haven't opened a history book. It wasn't that long ago.
Jim Crow was like in the 60s, so it's not that far.
Right.
But I mean, your parents can, like some people's parents and grandparents can remember these days. But when they were asking for reparations, that part I didn't like, and I thought it was an unfortunate part of the platform for me because I thought it made everything it made everything else you didn't want to listen to, because if that's part of it, then it makes it seem as if the rest of it also follows in that line. I just don't agree.
Were the reparations for individuals, or is there a way to do reparations to communities?
Well, they were calling for reparations for individuals.
It's really tough, and I'm not necessarily against it, but I just see so many people that are. It's just never going to happen, and it's going to distract us from the things that we might actually be able to get done.
And I'm just 1,000% against reparations, because I do think when you call for things like public education, and those are reparations. I think the fact that we have a welfare system to help people of different socioeconomic statuses, achieve different, whatever it is they need to meet their needs, I think that is a form of reparation.
Well, and I think even the progressives who are against reparations are like, if you give some people this money, they're, unless they have financial education, are just going to blow it on silly things, and it's not going to make a difference to them, their lives, or their
and
children.
That's why we have things like affirmative action to help even the playing field, And so I think we have those things to help even the playing field already in place. They need to be better. Those systems need to be monitored better as well. But I don't think reparations is the answer, and I think it detracts from the rest of the things that societally we should be doing to uplift people that have been obviously affected by slavery and Jim Crow.
All right, so just in case they're asking, that's our opinion. Even though I'm not necessarily against it, I
just
think
can't see why we'd be giving cash payments to individuals at this stage, unless you were.
Because cash, that's how we make people whole, and I use the air quotes because that's
and the only
sort of
reason
the legal standard that we're.
And the only reason I would say is if you were directly affected, but then you have the civil system, then you file suit when you're directly affected by something. And we have cases where people have been monetarily compensated for whether it was wrongful incarceration because they were black or things of that nature. They still get compensated through the system.
Yeah.
So I don't think reparations are needed.
Some of the other ones, demilitarizing police forces. I'm all for that one.
Yes, certainly all for that, or at the very least, educating police forces when they have more tools at their disposal.
That's definitely one of them. And they're ending the money bail system. We've talked a little bit about how it unfairly sort of targets people who don't have money. So it's sort of like a tax on poor people, or you're going to stay in jail longer if you're poor. I understand that one. Unionizing efforts for domestic
farm workers, domestic workers and farm workers.
Yeah, that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
I didn't see how that was immediately connected to what the Black Lives Matter movement and other movements similar have been pushing for.
I mean, I don't know if that was because I know the Latino community. I don't know if that was a pitch to get them involved as well if there were organizations that were like, Afro Latino organizations involved.
That's a super rough one. Union decline has been massive in the last 30 years. A good movie on that one is Robert Reich's movie Inequality for All. I'm full of resources today. That's going to be a tough one. I look at these and I'm like, these are all things that Bernie Sanders was saying. Why didn't these organizations get behind him? But whatever. That's over for now. Actually, no, it's not. He's started the Sanders Institute, and there's a movement that's continuing it called Our Revolution, which I think these 50 organizations should look into because they match very much what I understand
and I think
the platform to be.
And I think that's going to be something that this movement has to do. It's got to engage others. It can't just be a movement of just black organizations. It's got to be a movement of different organizations, because a lot of what they're talking about doesn't just touch black people. It doesn't just touch minorities. A lot of it touches, poor white people in certain communities.
It's true. Yeah. All right. Oh, this was interesting. Decriminalizing sex work.
Yeah.
How are you on that?
I
this is kind of putting you on the spot, but
it's something I haven't researched in terms of its impact. I don't know if decriminalizing sex work means more exploitation of people that don't want to be in the sex industry.
Yeah, that's my only concern with it too. I've seen that in some countries, and I can't remember which ones, they prosecute the men for buying it, but not the women who are selling it.
And that's an interesting solution. I don't know if I agree with it, but it sounds interesting.
All right. Okay. And finally, 6 more state employees were criminally charged in the Flint Water Crisis. Yeah. So on the surface, that sounds good. Like, okay, people are being held accountable for this crisis, which, by the way, has only been made worse recently. I'm not sure if trash collection has resumed, but I read that the trash collection in Flint stopped on Monday.
Oh, wow. And we know that the water there is still not safe,
yes.
which was a surprise to me.
It's just unbelievable to me that that's happening in any city in America, that they still don't, after now like practically 2 years it's been, and when we don't have clean water.
And when we say the water's not safe, it meant that more than 10% of homes can still find, I believe it's like 15 parts per billion of lead, and there's supposed to be no lead whatsoever in the water. So that means it's still unsafe. So
the charges against these state employees are for current or former employees of either the State Department of Environmental Quality or the Department of Health and Human Services. Yep. And the first thing my mind does is, if they weren't able to prosecute successfully the 6 guys that had something to do directly with Freddie Gray's death, are they going to have to, any teeth to go after these 6 people that tangentially had something to do with the lead pipes? Maybe I'm making connections that aren't there.
Well, I think unlike the Freddie Gray case, here you can probably have some emails. You're probably going to have a written documents that show what people are doing.
And here's the problem. These are state employees. So these are people going to say, I was just doing as I was told.
Yeah.
So I was following what my supervisor and their supervisor, and really, doesn't this just all go back up to the governor and the city and whoever made the decision to switch over the water source?
Well, even employees still have some sort of basis of negligence, a negligence standard that they have to adhere to as well. So whether it was negligent and not identifying that they need to replace
or because they knew or should have known when enough complaints were made that the water was dangerous, and then they didn't.
Yeah, because it looks like by 2014, by 2014 they knew that the water was unsafe. 2015,
like immediately it started coming out smelly and gross looking,
and
after
that's when
they
they're
made
getting
the
all
switch.
the complaints. And then in 2015, by July 2015, these same employees are still putting out there that it's due to some seasonal variations, and there's no actual issue with the water. And so I think that's what at least 4 of them are on the hook for.
I will be shocked if any of these, now it's a total of 9 employees, are convicted of anything. I'm going to give it like a 10% chance.
Oh no, I think they will be convicted. I think you're going to have a paper trail, whereas in some of the other cases you didn't have it.
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting jaded, but for some reason I don't have a lot of faith.
And interesting to
Flint.
note, it's the Republican Attorney General that's pushing forward with this plan. So hopefully some
after
of these
the Republican governors, yeah.
But I'm just hoping these issues are like bipartisan issues and we're not, seeing more partisanship. But I'm sure in your show,
2 years later, yeah. Oh man. Okay. I hope there is reprieve for the people of Flint. This is just awful. I don't know. I feel like saying I'm sorry, even though I have nothing to do with it. I'm sorry. All right. So that will have to be the last story that we cover today. Thank you so much for joining us on Justice is Served. Please be sure to give us comments, feedback, likes. I'm at Chelsea Galicia.
And I'm at Shaka Strong on Twitter and Instagram.
And we will be back next week for another episode of Justice is Served. Join us then.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio, Instagram at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood Redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.